Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 2 of the Good Vibe Show with me, Vivek Atray. Today we have some extremely special guests and we're sitting in their lovely garden, Dr. Ranjana Malik and General VP Malik. And we are here together to discuss good feelings, good vibes. Ma'am and sir, it's a pleasure to have you on this show. What I'd like to ask you first of all, ma'am, is how did you meet General Malik? I'm sure he was only a major then, but how did it go about?
Vivek, we met on 23rd of December 1967.
Wow.
The date is exact because it was my friend's birthday and there was a party on. And we were about 10 fresh doctors straight out of the medical school, having finished our internship. So it was great to enjoy ourselves and meet the young men. Subsequently, he sent me a letter in my medical college asking me out. But I didn't agree on the first, and because we were already going to the New Year's Eve with my brother. He sent me a couple of more messages, but I told him that I have to collect my medical registration certificate from Ludhiana. Until that comes and it is submitted to the medical directorate, I can't go for my course,
Right.
as the army medical course. So that's how it carried on.
But coming to you, sir, you may have recollections of the same day and then subsequently leading up to your marriage and early days, how was that?
See, after she landed in Lucknow for her military training, I wrote her a letter and she responded. So वो फंस गई फिर. And then we carried on writing to each other for almost about 5.5 months.
Whoa.
Till we met in Dehradun where she had been posted. So soon after her posting, I again spoke to her and I said that I'm coming to Dehradun to meet you. And that day we met, and in the evening, on the very first day, I proposed to her and she said yes, and that was it.
Was it something that required a lot of courage to propose? The heart is probably beating faster, and obviously you are an army officer, a different kind of courage required here, sir.
I had a hunch that she will accept,
So,
because I was confident. I had a hunch that she will accept. And mind you, that correspondence that we had, we got to know each other quite well. Not just about the families, but I would say more about what we like and what we don't, And I found that she was quite interested in the army and she liked the army life. So there were many hints I took that yes, she'll probably accept.
I think I like the word correspondence. They were probably a little romantic letters or not so romantic, but anyway, in those days people were a little more conservative.
We got to know each other very well.
Yes.
I had very humorous anecdotes to tell him about my training in the Army Medical
Any
Corps.
that you remember?
Yes, I used to describe to him going to the camps and digging those trenches and the route marches, and he would tell me about episodes of catching terrorists in Nagaland. So we did get to know a lot about each other. And mind you, when he proposed to me, it was only the second time we met. I had a feeling that this may come about, but I wasn't sure because I hadn't met him a second time. But when he proposed, well.
That was superb. In fact, in today's era, the level of communication is so intense between young people. They probably know each other so well before even the proposal or anything else. So how was the early period with ma'am and in your career? How was it going?
When we got married, she was posted in Dehradun and I was posted in Delhi in army headquarters. So it was difficult. Almost about 1 year we spent like that. And weekends, either I would go to Dehradun or when she got leave, she would come to Delhi. And then subsequently we got our posting, with great difficulty we got a posting together to Jabalpur. She got posted to military hospital Jabalpur and I joined the unit which was in Jabalpur, my own unit really. And so the life has been for us, I being an infantry officer and she was in the army, you couldn't get postings together. So we had those difficulties of being posted together. And finally, after 5 years, in fact, because of that reason, primarily, she decided to quit the army and join someone. She joined Oil and Natural Gas Commission after that.
I'm going to ask you, ma'am, just to put this in perspective. Today, sir, you are, if I may say so, a VVIP, a well-known personality, a former army chief. In those days, everybody struggles to get a posting, to get that togetherness, and you obviously went through the grind. So let's ask ma'am about that grind.
I'll tell you a very interesting episode. After our honeymoon and our leave, I went back to Dehradun, and I was to go. I had an army warrant, which was in my maiden name. So then his mother insisted that he accompany me. So when we went into the train, and there was a ladies' coupe in my name, and the conductor would not let him come into my coupe because he had a different name and I had my maiden name. And we pleaded that we were married, but he
did not agree.
He did not agree to let us travel.
That is terrible. I mean, that sounds like the moral police.
Yeah.
But I must tell you, during those days, we took annual leave, we took full annual leave, full casual leave, and quite a bit of French leave also to be together. So those are the difficulties that we faced.
But sir, tell me, through your career, there must have been some tense moments, some, if I can use the word, some dense moments. Coming back to ma'am's sage counsel, solid advice, did you discuss a lot of your tensions with her, work related?
Can I say something?
Sure.
Now, there was no telephone communication at all. We used to communicate only on letters. I would write a letter to him and it would take 24, 25 days to get to him. So by the time he sent a reply...
I was posted in Mizoram at a place where there were no roads, Yeah.
So a month and a half would pass before I got a reply. So we wrote to each other every single day. And I did not want him later to miss out on a single day of the children's growing up. So we shared everything every day in letters.
Here we are, ma'am, 54 years after you first met, and I can see the synergy, the togetherness, that energy, writing to each other those days, now spending this quality time together. Lovely, I must say. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Sir, tell me, matters of the nation, matters of security, the war, and being chief and being an army officer, many a time did you feel like sharing that tension with someone, and ma'am was there? I mean, there must be some norm as to what you can talk to even your wife about or not. But how did you let go of that tension?
I think it's the training that army gives. To me, of course, and even she has been in the army for 5 years. So, as far as operational matters are concerned, we don't discuss them at home. Nobody discusses them. But social activities, certainly, and certain other, which has nothing to do with the operational duties, those we do talk to each other. And we've been fortunate that right from the beginning we've been sharing such thoughts with each other always. There has been no problem at all on that. She is, of course, she was a homekeeper, home minister, if I can use the word. And
a working professional.
And a working professional. But she accepted that norm. I think what I want to mention is that family is a major partner, particularly during stress times. Whenever people ask me, how did you go through the stress period? I think the most stressful period for me was Kargil War.
Yes.
Which carried on for a few months. At that time, I can say that although we were not sharing, I was not sharing with her the details of our operations, but she could make out that I was going through that stressful period. So I would say that my first stress buster was the family.
Vivek, in the mornings when he used to get news of the number of casualties during Kargil War, I know how disturbed he was. you know, because every war has those casualties, and when he used to get those details, it used to upset him terribly.
I'm sure.
And that is the time you have to sort of hold his hand and say, well, there's a war and we're going
you
on.
did more. You were the head of the Army Welfare Wives Association. And how did it work out and what did you do?
You know, most people don't know that the Army Wives Welfare Association has a very big role. It is the largest NGO in this country. We had teams of ladies at the airport when the dead bodies were arriving. We had teams of ladies visiting the hospitals to see the wounded casualties whose arms were cut off, whose eyes were, they had splinters all over their body. We had teams of ladies and visiting all the families, next of kin of those who had been martyred. We had people visiting the field area family quarters where the ladies are staying, those whose husbands are fighting a battle. You can imagine their anguish and the anxiety. We were present all the time. I had to explain to the vice president's wife what we were doing. I had to explain to the president's wife what we were doing. And there was so much we did.
Absolutely, ma'am. And then the Kargil War itself, sir, I mean, a victory despite the odds, and we know the brave soldiers, they lost their lives, films are being made even today. Tell us your feeling about that war today.
You know, when I look back, firstly, I must give full credit of that victory to our officers, young officers in particular, and the men. And what I saw of our young officers and the unit personnel and all is something quite remarkable. I don't think anywhere in the world you have such people who will go against the odds, knowing fully well they're climbing up, there are bullets coming, there is shelling going on and all. So the credit must go to them. And there was a lot of determination. In fact, I will also tell you that when I was in Delhi, you know, normal work and all, I used to see long faces of the political leaders as well as some of my colleagues also, ke hoga, kya hoga, not knowing how the whole thing will turn out to. But whenever I went to the forward area, to the front, and which I did almost every 6th day, I found high morale, and they are the people who gave me a morale. Nobody ever said, sir, it can't be done, you know, and I used to see them and I used to talk to them and I used to feel quite assured that yes, the victory will be ours, we will be able to.
Absolutely, sir. The leadership that you exemplified, and then the Indian Army itself, a great institution.
Yeah.
The courage, the valor.
Absolutely.
Really tremendous, and we are so proud of that victory. But then coming to a slightly lighter moment, ma'am, it is said that when the officer is a major, the wife is a colonel. And because the wife is one step ahead of the officer. So have you ever felt
I'd like to think that I'd like to think that that is true. But you know, together I think we've maintained contact with all the families, all the soldiers who fought the war, all the wives who were left behind, even in service and after service. We make it a point to go and meet them wherever we are, whichever part of the country we are. If we know there's a soldier's family there, we go and meet them. And I have very close contacts with most of them.
Ma'am, you spent 5 years in the army and then 20 years with ONGC. And then you joined General Malik when he was posted in Jalandhar. So how was that transition immediately? Were there any...
People asked me if I missed work. And I said no, not at all, because I got totally involved with the army and looking after the welfare of the army. That had me so busy that I didn't miss my medical work at all.
Ma'am. But the ladies in the army, and you were telling me earlier that for the first time, sir, there was a case where two officers' wives wanted to join the army rather than
yes,
pensioners.
I will tell you, Vivek, I was in office when two young ladies came to me. They had lost their husbands, one in Kashmir and one in the eastern sector in a helicopter crash. And they told me that we have been told that we will get pension for the rest of our lives. But we don't want this pension. We want to do something for this army for which our husbands gave their lives. So I approached my husband and he went through the Ministry of Defense, we got permission for them, extension of age, permission for them to join the army in spite of being married women, in spite of having a child. And I'm very proud of the fact that since then, so many young Veer Naris, as we call them now, have joined the army.
So coming to you again, so these women in the army now, more permissions have been given, allowances, openings, NDA. What is your viewpoint on this?
No, I think, society is changing, our social norms are changing, and the girls are also progressing not only in the armed forces, but in every field. And of course, armed forces, they were not getting inducted. What I have seen of these girls who joined the Army, Navy or Air Force, they've done extremely well. And the only condition at the moment which the Army continues to follow is not to send them in the combat arms, where they may get involved in hand-to-hand fighting with the enemy, or under those conditions, which are right on the front line. Mind you, the engineer officers, including the girls, they go quite ahead, but not in infantry or armored corps or artillery yet. And they've been doing well, and I'm glad that they are giving a tough competition to the men.
Absolutely, sir. In fact, I agree with what you said, and that is what should be done.
Yeah.
But let's step a little back. One of the people who inspired you, I know, in the army was General Manakshaw.
Yeah.
He obviously inspired you a lot. Any memories you'd like to share, or any lighter incident that you'd like to recall?
Well, Field Marshal Manekshaw was and has remained my icon for a very long time. I was a young major when I met him for the first time, and he was the Eastern Army commander. And he had a tremendous sense of humor. Now, I'll give you one anecdote that I was called to Pune by one foundation, Atur Foundation, and
you were the chief?
I was an army chief that time, and this is soon after the war. And they wanted to give me a leadership award along with some excellence in leadership, along with some money also. And Field Marshal Manekshaw had been called to preside over that function. So when I reached there and we were sitting on the dais, and a girl came and she gave me a bouquet of flowers, as it happens usually. So I accepted that and said, and when Field Marshal started talking, when his turn and he was speaking, he said, we are giving him this Excellence in Leadership Award, but General Malik is a coward.
God.
So it took me, her, everybody by surprise that, using the word. So I looked at him questioningly, what does he mean? He says, that good-looking girl came, she handed over the bouquet to him, but he didn't have the courage to kiss her.
Oh God.
So that was his sense of humor, A great man, not only a great soldier, but also a great person. And so in all respect, I consider him to be an icon, and one learns a lot from his
Absolutely, sir. What a wonderful incident, and thank you for relating such with such candor that incident. Ma'am, did you ever come across any situation where you felt that slight tinge of jealousy because sir was meeting some ladies or something like that?
No, never. Never. I don't think so. One is confident. Yeah, I would say I would not have the envy, but there were many others who objected to the fact that he was always surrounded by the media, whether we went to Rashtrapati Bhavan, whether we went for the Independence Day function, Republic Day functions. Even the other chiefs probably looked on, and the ministers and the Minister of Defense, because he used to be surrounded by people always.
Right. And did you ever, interact with the media? You've had your own fame, and you've been writing. So how?
Yeah, I've been writing. I've done a couple of interviews, even with Barkha Dutt and Srinivasan Jain on NDTV. I've done interviews on a program called Vijay Jyoti, when two actors, they called me to that program. We spoke about that. And I had spoken on radio stations in USA, and they asked me to speak. Then when we went to USA after Kargil War, at every place I spoke, whether it was New York or whether it was Washington, and they wanted to give some money for the defense forces. So we spoke to them.
We were together most of the time after retirement. Whenever I had to speak about the Kargil War, so generally I asked her to speak about the welfare activities that they carried out. And I must tell you that even in the book that I have written on Kargil War, Kargil from Surprise to Victory, I asked her to write a chapter on these activities.
There's a whole chapter written
The whole
by me.
chapter. She wrote that
She
chapter.
wrote that, but ma'am, you are very much into books anyway.
Yes.
You're a writer as well as you are part of a book club and your love for books. Just quickly.
For the last 18 years, we came here 20 years ago. I have been a member of a book club, and we meet every month and we discuss a book. And we have 10 members, range from 45 years of age till 80 years. And you can imagine the difference of perspective that everyone puts across. It's been very interesting. We have a very varied reading. It can be crime, it can be autobiography, it can be thrillers, it can be serious subjects like Ikigai.
Ikigai.
Yes. And now I'm reading this, The Force Behind the Forces. And I asked the ladies, because I think they should know how strong the army wives are and how much strength they give to the
This is about army wives.
Yes, sir.
And
how
this book is
how
written
they
by
pull
an army
themselves
wife.
together after they've lost their husbands. I think very heart-rending and heartwarming too.
It is the only service where when you sign up, you are virtually declaring that I'm willing to risk my life in this job.
Yeah,
that's the only service where even in the police is not that much, but in the army it is definitely there.
As I was reading this and I was thinking of how I will discuss this, they are romantic stories and yet they end with such pathos. And then again you feel so encouraged by the courage that these girls showing. You know, how they've stood up in times of disaster like
Which
this.
is your favorite film, ma'am? Any romantic films, romantic books, or any other stories that have inspired you, or any other films that have inspired you?
Oh, we are old timers. So I can only remember the earlier movies. Roman Holiday was one.
Roman Holiday.
Strangers When We Met. And pictures with Cary Grant, Rock Hudson.
You love watching them together, sir?
Yeah, we do.
We do. Even now we do that. But if you are asking me about that, again, old timer, I thought one really enjoyed Hum Dono.
Hum Dono.
Yeah, that was a very favorite movie. Yeah,
That's right.
I think I saw it 3 times.
Oh, wonderful. Nowadays, with Netflix and other things, you watch Netflix and also
We do.
You're into it.
Yeah, we
Any
do.
particular show you'd like to recommend to our audience, or are you secretive about it?
याद ही करना पड़ेगा. You know, there are so many OTT channels, and then one is switching from one to the other.
Where do you find time to write, sir? I know you're an author and you've been traveling and speaking after leaving the services, after retirement. How has this career been, the second one?
No, it's been a very good career for me. I'll tell you why. Because while you are in the army, you really don't get to know about activities outside as much. You don't meet too many people, and in any case, you don't know about the other careers much. So it has been a very educative second phase as far as I am concerned. I've learned a lot being on the board of so many companies and meeting so many people outside. So I've quite enjoyed it. It's been very satisfying. Just as my first career, the more important career was quite satisfying. So has been this. As far as writing part is concerned, luckily for me, I never had to do much at home. She looked after the house, she looked after the children. So शुरू से ही आदत थी कि कुछ ना कुछ करना है, and I did not have to do anything at home. So one got time to write, and
one
got time to travel also, I believe.
And
so
one
how has
got
been
time.
travel, ma'am?
We have enjoyed every bit of our travel. During service, it was different. I accompanied him to every corner of the country, and I went to all the high peaks, Siachen Glacier,
Posts also.
Kati,
I took her
Palbir
to
Post.
Siachen Glacier also.
Yes,
Yeah.
I've been there. And after service also, we had the opportunity of going all over the world, and it's been different. That was different.
It's different, but then these are the colors of life,
Yes,
and
yes.
then the shades of life. But sir, also you're very popular on social media. You have a very large following, and obviously everything that you tweet is taken very seriously. So how has been your experience of social media, and what is your advice to younger people?
You see, social media is a double-edged weapon, and I realize that. So I am careful. I am on the Twitter, and I express my thoughts. Generally, it's one-way traffic. I don't get into dialogues, and also I don't respond to people who start, asking stupid questions and all. But it is also educative, as I said. You get to know more. You learn from the others who are writing some serious things. So I have been on the Twitter. I'm not on the Facebook. She's on the Facebook. But on the Twitter, I like it, and I keep it going.
What is your advice for younger people? So we are also part of a think tank called Suvichar, where we do advise the youth, and we go and speak to college youth, and we take their inputs as well. What one or two things would you like to address to them, those who will watch this show?
Vivek, firstly, I must thank you, because you are the one who is the main organizer of think tank.
Thank you, sir.
And Suvichar. And I have always felt that at my age and other colleagues, we should try and give something to the society. And that is what, as you know yourself, we have been trying to do. And we've been getting in touch with young people, young students particularly, young, both in schools as well as on different social activities, whether it is sports or it is about education, about the legal aspects, about so many other activities that we are. And I quite enjoy those sessions that we have either in the schools or in the colleges, and we share our thoughts with them. And I think that has made a lot of difference. You have been corresponding with the governors and others, and whatever we discuss has been passed on to them also, so that they can make use of it. So I do believe that Suvichar is a good activity, and we would like to continue.
Ma'am, tell us some other humorous incident or anecdote that you recall.
I always objected to the security people around me. I was, a working person. I used to drive around all over, and I did not enjoy the fact that there were security people chasing every movement of yours. So one day in Jalandhar, I just, without telling anyone, I took my car and drove off without anyone knowing. And they were hunting for me all over. And when I came back, his ADC was quite angry with me, but we had to tell him that don't check her,
He
otherwise
picked her off.
that she will go back and join duty. And there was another incident. We were to travel by a train from Jalandhar to Meerut, overnight train. And when we jumped onto the train in a very short halt, I found there were a whole lot of security men in the corridors. So I told them, "Ab aap utar jao, sab train chalne wali." They said, "Ji, humne to saath hi jana hai." Now that was horrifying, because at night, if you wanted to use the washroom and you put your head out, there were three people with their rifles jumping to attention. So I decided we can't
So
use the washroom.
1992 in Punjab.
So all over, you don't really relish this thing. And I find people today are hankering for security, hankering for the privileges of what they call security. I think one is much better off with that.
It's basically been, sometimes there's so many people with you, you even feel shy about going to somebody's house.
Yes.
Because the people have to prepare
Correct, yeah.
meals
Yeah,
for them
that's
as well.
right,
So, poor things. And also, ma'am, anything that after leaving the service, the second inning, nowadays, how is life? How's it going?
Life is fine. And life is what you make of it. I love to interact with people. While my husband is busy most of the time, I love to reach out to people. As I say, don't create walls around yourself, build bridges. I'm interacting with so many people. Facebook I found particularly interesting because I've been able to link with so many people I knew.
I see so many of your posts. I love them.
So, life is what you make of it. It can be fun, it can be good, and you reach out and help those who need your help. I think that's important at this stage.
They have a Defense Officers Wives Association here, you know, large number of ladies from Army, Navy, Air Force, their wives. And they do carry out a lot of social activities, education of the children, of poor children. Then she's also a member of
there's a Society for Meritorious Students, headed by General Malhotra. And I've been one of the founder members for the last 15, 16 years. And we fund their education.
Giving back to society.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you too, I mean, been at the helm of affairs at the top level of your service, and then afterwards you are a celebrity, you are a speaker, you're sought after, you're busy, as ma'am says. I'm sure she's been saying this for 54 years.
Every day.
Every day. So some things have changed and some have not changed. So how is the current period for you? How is the current time? How do you see yourself?
No, I think, you know, there is a lot of change, and I would say that the change is now coming faster. For example, look at, we went through COVID period, all of us, the whole lot of us, and COVID made us dependent on internet, and COVID made all the board meetings today, they are all virtual board meetings. We don't meet each other even now. So firstly, you have to accept the change with a positive attitude, and you should not hanker back to ke wo acha tha. Oh, I don't even think of past. I always think of future. That has always been my attitude. So change is good. You should be prepared for change. You should accept the change, and change has improved our life. You know, look at the quality of life that we are spending today. As compared to 50 years ago or 60 years ago.
They were not writing letters which reach in 24 days.
Yeah, that's right.
Too, nowadays.
So
that was also interesting.
There was a charm.
That was good because the romance that you conveyed in those letters, you can't do on a telephone.
oh, there are other ways of romancing even now, you know. But what I say, change is for the good, and one should be positive, looking at it positively toward the change, and one should look forward to that.
So one last message for perhaps your former colleagues, your course mates. The two of you are so inspirational even today, going strong. I'm sitting with you. The chat is wonderful. That energy is there. Some of them may be feeling lonely, maybe feeling less energetic. What would you like to say to them?
Look, firstly, I would say that look after your health. You know, at old age, it becomes even more important than say so many years ago. That is the most important. The second thing I think is remain in communication and keep in touch with people. And the third thing I would say, remain positive to the change that is taking place. Make use of internet, learn something. There is so much to learn there. And don't sit at home, go out, meet as many people as possible, travel as much as you can. And I think that way you will remain young,
Very
if
well
I can
said,
use
sir.
that.
Very well said. Ma'am, your advice to the ladies of India?
You know, I believe in being very personal in my interactions. I read all these messages, somebody has passed away or somebody's ill, and you'll write, everyone will write on that WhatsApp message, RIP, RIP, Om Shanti. But I believe that you have to reach out to the family who's affected. So I will dig out the address and I will write a personal letter, no matter what, no matter which Jawan's wife, which officer's wife. Even now we've lost so many young officers and General Rawat. I have reached out to everyone's family with my own, writing letters myself.
Sir and ma'am, it's been a pleasure to have you on this show, and it's always so inspiring to meet you, to be with you. You've been a part of my book launches, my personal occasions, and I really feel honored and blessed. I have the honor to present to you a copy of The Divine Quest, brought out by the Yogananda Center for Theology at Shulini University. which has many interesting articles. And as I always do at the end of my shows, I do present a copy, and do come. We'll just pose for a final shot.
Thank you, Vivek.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
We've enjoyed being with you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.